Okay, well, thank you for being here and thank you for your patience, because it's been a work in progress, this paper on cultural innovation. Now we know it will appear, so I'll be happy that you look into that when it will be out. It will be published on Science and Public Policy in February. And we call it cultural innovation, dimensions, outcomes and processes. I'm not going to read it now, but I want to launch a few items, especially I'm looking forward to brainstorming with you. And let me start with this. It's a stupid story. I don't want to make politics, but I was in China and I had a colleague, and I asked him, how are things going? And he said, well, in my country, things are very bad because the government says it puts all the money on innovation. And we don't do in any innovation, we are philosophers, so we will not get any money. And so I said, well, I understand your point. Your government, I make no names, your government is a bit hard on that, but we can do something. So let's consider, please, what I'm going to tell you as a kind of life belt, so that we don't drown, you see, because actually we belong to innovation. It's not true that we don't do innovation. The question is, how do we do that? And yesterday I was discussing with the ERC people, and they have one of the requisites for having a project financed according to the ERC. You know them possibly. It's free, groundbreaking, innovative, feasible. And in another version they have groundbreaking, ambitious, and feasible. So, and then I asked, okay, what does it mean? Does it mean that, how can I say, and they said, it's good that you say very precisely how innovative your process is. Not just saying, I'm proposing something that will change everything. No, you must be precise. Okay, what does it mean? Now, please look at that. So this is Horizon Europe, Excellent Science, Global Challenges, Innovative Europe. So you see that a big chunk, which was not in Horizon 2020, is for innovation. So look at that. And the question is, are we going to go into that? Well, possibly, but we have to consider. No, don't do that. Yeah.
Try to help.
No, it doesn't help. It's not bad. Okay. No, come on, get back. Okay, like that. It's not too bad. Come on. So we belong to Pillar 1 because we are research infrastructure. You see, we belong actually where the European Research Council belongs. And then you see the global challenges, and if you read them, we belong to Cluster 2. Culture, creativity, and inclusive society. This is where our research will yield. Now, the question is, how do we define innovation? And you see, it's easy actually. If you look at the paper, now there are several occurrences of the term. And one, we know, we belong to that because the strategy working group, Social and Cultural Innovation of ESFRI, includes DARIAH. So DARIAH is part of the European Commission effort for social and cultural innovation. There we have it. No definition at all, but we have it. And we have I have quoted Justingmeyer and Budrich 2005. They talk about innovation and creativity, and they talk about cultural innovation. It's about marketing, obviously, a paper of 2012. I myself have used the cultural innovation for migration, 2017. But the point is, there are a number of definitions of social innovations. That's been clearly defined, but until now, no definition of the cultural dimension of innovation. So what we are looking at is trying to give citizen rights to a new category of innovation. That's the goal. Now, let me say also something which is really nice. It requires an effort. Let's go to that. Okay, you know them. They are the SDGs. 17 with blank space for the title, so 3 rows of 6. And this is really an important document. You see,
now it will help to make it in full view.
no, it will help, yes, that's right, yes.
Just certify this.
Okay, you do that. You see, these are the United Nations, and if you go back to the global challenges, you will see that the global challenges are missions, that must be evaluated on the effectiveness of the initiative. And Europe, I'm very proud of this. When I give this paper in China, I'm very proud. Europe is the only big research funding area that has taken the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as its center. This does not happen in the United States, it does not happen in China, it does not happen in South Africa, it happens in Europe, and that's very good. And now please make an effort. The United Nations Human Rights Charter was let's say, drawn and came into effect in 1948, and it was the answer of the United Nations towards avoiding war. So the issue in the 20th century was peace. The issue in the 21st century is sustainability. Sustainability. We have 80 years to go, and we won't go anywhere if we don't look at sustainability. So the icon of the United Nations Charter in 48 was the atomic bomb, obviously, and we knew that after that we had to work for peace. The icon today are melting glaciers. We have it. It's already there. We have melting glaciers, so we know that we can't go on like this. So I like very much that the word sustainability is in DESIR, because it's not simply we want to keep going and have funding and exist. We want to be there in order to provide an impact. And so we are excellent science, but we are excellent science that has an impact. Actually, Jennifer and Laurent Romary have written a paper on the impact of DARIAH as a research infrastructure. I think you can post it, it's open science. It's an important paper because it says how an infrastructure has an impact. But in this paper, in this discussion which I'm trying to start, we used to fight for peace. Now peace is the world order is so interconnected that peace is, so we're not afraid of wars to a time because we can stop them. But sustainability, global sustainability, this is our goal. We have to fight for that. And so we work for making sustainable development possible. That's it. I remember when I was at the CNR, sometimes I was talking to the people and said, you work because your research will create jobs. That's true. Our research creates jobs. This holds also for DARIAH. But it's something more. We work because we want to make sustainable development possible. And let me add, there is a spiritual side in that. And the spiritual side is Matthew 5 and Luke 6, where Jesus said, blessed are the poor, blessed are the meek, blessed are the ones who mourn. So we have to take the point of view of the ones that are not rich. You see, reducing inequality is number 8. No poverty, number 1. Zero hunger, number 2. I mean, it's very big. It's very big. And nonetheless, what I'm trying to show with this paper, but I need your, let's say, co-design, co-thinking, because it's a hard task, is to show that what we do as humanists has an impact, right? That's the challenge. Let me show this. This is the result of a survey that was conducted on the how the entrance document of Madame Ursula von der Leyen as President of the European Commission has impacts on research. So this is the results of researchers that how do you find the priorities of Madame von der Leyen in Horizon Europe, and you see number 1 is Green Deal. That's right, that's what we hear, melting glaciers, that's the icon now. Second, an economy that works for people, that's what she says and has been endorsed by many. And a Europe fit for the digital age, this is DARIAH, this is what we do. Protecting our European way of life is a strange formulation, we don't like that very much, but it's about diversity, having an inclusive society. Stronger Europe in the war is about security. And the last one, new push for European democracy, is actually very important, but it's not the first priority. But let me keep the global sustainable development goals on. Now, I read some of the paper. What needs to be considered is a gap between the discourse about innovation as part of the economic sphere and the reflective, critical attitude of science and technology studies that stresses the social shaping of technological innovation. So, DARIAH is an infrastructure, our discipline is STS, and the outcome is shaping, the social shaping of technological innovation. Let us first see how to nucleate the cultural dimensions of an innovation in the public space. In fact, for long, the equation innovation equal to technology has been the hallmark of economic theory as well as the agenda of policymakers. Looking for an economic definition in the Schumpeterian perspective, a new combination of production factors by an entrepreneur with a perspective of profit, a question to ask is who qualifies as the entrepreneur of or the innovator? Is cultural innovation about companies, public institutions, group of citizens? Answering this question is important to understand the meaning of the economic part within cultural innovation. The company within a system of institutions or an ecosystem of institutions, organizations, citizens and consumers is certainly one of the main actors. We have an example in Italy, Olivetti, the one is the inventor of the first desktop computer, in 1964, and typewriters. Private sector foundations and charitable trusts are also actors of cultural innovation, which has found its place in some of our programs, although without any definition. So if you look at philanthrops, we want to put money so that innovation, culture becomes innovative. Other actors are universities and government, research facilities, and there is a long literature on that, but as I said, the strongest quote now is the ESFRI Roadmap 2016, the first time that social and cultural innovation comes up. Now, let me have you think about the acronyms. R&D, R&I. R&D is research and development. R&I is research and innovation. Now we have some problems with the new Director General because the Director General Research and Innovation has disappeared. We have only one Director General for Innovation, Culture, Youth and Sport. So research has come out of the scene, too bad, but still we have to think about that. So research is money to knowledge. That is, the government or private enterprise decides we want to have some new knowledge, not innovation, new knowledge. So a principle in a pharmaceutical or an equation, an algorithm, something that is in the realm of thought. Okay, that's research. Blue sky research. That's what the European Research Council actually wants. Curiosity-driven research, no application. D, development, is you put the idea into the world. That is, you create a model and see how the principle, the new idea has come to be realized, implemented, implementable. Development means that from the model you come to a prototype, and then by means of several cascade effects, the prototype might become a product. When the prototype has become a product, the cycle of research and development stops, and we have the cycle of innovation. Innovation means the new product goes into the market and is adopted and creates a new line of products. Many of them, iPhones, iPads, some work, some don't. Okay? Now, the interesting thing is that when the prototype becomes a product, there is a conversion. It's no more money to knowledge, it's knowledge to money. Okay? Now, how about knowledge to money? Obviously, in the old system, we have closed innovation. Microsoft is an example. Microsoft is closed innovation because they put money, they have created algorithms and microchips, whatever it took, and when they had them, they started making money. Okay? This is closed innovation. Now, DARIAH relies on open science. So now you don't have open science just to have open science. And that's one of the points of Commissioner Carlos Moedas. You have open science because you want open innovation. Okay? So what we do in culture is not we create something which becomes a factory secret and we don't want it to be copied by anybody because it's our and we make money with that. No. We work with open science and we create open innovation. Okay, so the point is, innovation is not only for products that make money. Innovation is also for services. And services also are about money because they make important savings possible. So actually, social innovation is about saving money for having more effective services. It's about money, but it's about creating the conditions. So share is very effective. Actually, the research infrastructure we have on aging is very effective because it produces knowledge that becomes innovation in as far as it brings costs down. And the same for ESS and CESDA and so on. Now, what happens with us? The famous, how is innovation in the humanities possible? Well, there are several examples. I mean, the institute that Tomasz had the grace to mention, the one I directed 50 years after its inception, was extremely innovative because it was the first one that invented digital humanities. We were the first one to put Descartes, Aquinas, everything in the machine and use the outputs, use the outcomes. So we were innovative in that sense because we created a new product and we made several savings possible. But here we come to the point we'd like to make. What do we do? Exactly. Yeah? So let me come back again to social innovation. Social innovation is clear. It's been defined by answering three questions. First question is, does it work? Second question is, does it cost right? Third question is everybody ready to accept it? An example, I was born in Milano. Lombardy is a very innovative region, let's say so. So we were the first ones in 1996 that took advantage of technological innovation, in this sense medical informatics, medical ICT, and we introduced the health citizen card, which is a card that had all medical records of every citizen in Lombardy. Okay? That was made it possible by medical ICT and was something that actually solved the problem. Because instead of going around to archives of for my records, everything was in this card. So it solved the problem. Second question, did it cost right? Yes, it costed right because it enabled big savings. So that's an example of innovation that enables to save money and put it in services, in our services. And third question, is everybody ready to accept? Yes, no problem. An example that didn't go is personalized medicine. Personalized medicine is obviously knowledge. It's not true that one size fits all. It's much better that we create medicaments according to the genetic structure of the patients. So this is true. It's knowledge. It's very interesting. But does it pass the test of social innovation? No. Why? Because A, it doesn't solve the problem. So with personalized medicine, you have terminal cancer patients that live 12 months more. It's not the fight against cancer. Second, does it cost right? No, it doesn't. Every treatment costs 35,000 euros. Third question, is everybody ready to accept it? No. Simply, no. Because of economic inequalities. So that's an example of an innovation that didn't pass the social innovation test. But we're not talking about that. We are not talking about a scientific culture, for instance. Scientific culture was a wave of interest around the year 2000, before the infrastructures were started. You know, S3 was started in 2002. These are discussions of the late 90s. Scientific culture is about science communication. It has something to do with what we do, but it's not what we do. And then we also have heritage-led innovation. You find heritage-led in many places. I say Preparedness is about heritage-led innovation. Preparedness is very strong in coupling technological innovation and methodologies for making research in archaeology, in social science, in the humanities more effective. But this is not cultural innovation. These are all parts. So if we want to come to cultural innovation, and sorry I kept so long, let me say this. We consider cultural innovation has a number of processes. So what is the first process? The first process is access. Okay, an innovative infrastructure, DARIAH, grants access. Okay, it grants access, and it means we want to overcome the digital divide. We did that more or less. If it was a problem 20 years ago, now digital divide has been done. But granting access to text, data, tools, it's a very important part. And in this sense, in this article we are publishing in Science and Public Policy, DARIAH is a case study we are considering. So granting access is very important, and obviously there are hierarchies of access. Not everybody can or everybody does. It depends. We're not syndicating that. Second, the second process is participation. And here, DARIAH, with its 32 working group participants, is a beautiful example. It's a beautiful example. Where is the lady from Finland? Oh yeah, hi. Sorry, I didn't recognize you. Sorry, yeah, sorry. Well, I visited OD. OD is the new civic library of Helsinki. It's a big building, 3 stories. First story, wardrobe and restaurants. Third store, books. A number of books, not many. Open shelves, you have books. Actually, you have very many spaces for reading. So the floor is undulated, so you can simply lay down on the floor and be comfortable and read. Lots of pillows. And a lot of people reading, actually, mostly from their laptops, but reading, and there were books, a few books. A second store, the middle one, you have sewing machines, famously, for sewing. You have 3D printers, and you have I don't know, 22 rooms for working groups. 22. With glass windows, so you could see who is inside. What happens in a working group? Well, you reserve the room, and you have 2 screens, not one, 2 screens, and you ask the participants to join you and sit down with you, and everybody has their own laptops, but one leader that shows from the screen. So actually, this is exactly what we mean by open innovation, because they use the files of the library, they get together, and they produce something new. Grassroots, bottom up, but it's beautiful. So participation, access, participation. Third item is use. Actually, we use, and we leave traces. Now, if you are in a closed innovation environment like Netflix, you have subscribed to Netflix, so that's commercial. You use you download the content. Netflix knows. Actually, Netflix makes a lot of money from your use. Obviously, you can't be. You agreed. They know they know who you are, and they know what you like. So the use is actually at this point very important. But we are not talking about a closed innovation environment, because we're about an open innovation environment. So actually, we download everything and we post things. Now here we have questions, obviously. I live in China many weeks in the year, and I know how they work. They are having skyrocketing set of practices, also as regards use, but they are controlled everything everywhere. We don't have that. The question is, how long are we going to stick to privacy rules, or better said, are privacy protection rules a solution, or are they part of the problem? We don't know. This is open, but obviously use is a process of cultural innovation, no? Because we use and we leave traces. There is a very nice example of cultural innovation in the past. Imagine Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens had his office in Piccadilly Circus, and it was a shop. I mean, you could get in from the sidewalk. And he was there writing his novels, and the novels came out by installments, so every week apart. And Dickens were receiving readers. And readers were telling me, I want that, I like that, I want it to finish like that. You see, so actually, all novels by Dickens, in this sense, were co-created, because the readers, as users, they shaped the outcome. So these are things that we're getting close to what we do. But now, the fourth process is reflection. Reflection is an individual process, and is the ability of an individual to single out from the whole indiscriminate mass of the stream of floating content certain fixed elements in order to isolate them and concentrate attention upon them. The term reflection describes a process that relies on individuals who reflectively appropriate a culture and becomes producer of new knowledge. So we had, you remember, in Horizon 2020, we had the reflective societies. Horizon 2020 was concentrated on Europe. So instead of global challenges, we had societal challenges, as they were called, and the society that the legislator or the European Commission wanted to have was apparently inclusive, innovative, and reflective. Remember? Inclusive, innovative, reflective. Now, the reflective part is ours, because the inclusive part is the social sciences, but the reflective part is ours. So what do? In as far as we make it possible through access, participation, and use, we wanted kids, because we're talking about kids, to start reflecting. And what does reflection mean? Reflection means think about diversity. Reflection is I mirror myself in somebody who is not myself. So so the reflective society is a term, but so I quote the Faro Framework or Convention of the Value of Cultural Heritage for Society, for instance. 2005 was the Council of Europe, which has been taken up by the UNESCO. This is about diversity. So reflection is we get something in motion, and we get this something in motion because there is something that's different from us. And here there are examples. Now, the last process that defines cultural innovation, according to our proposal, as I said, access, participation, use, reflection. The last one is inclusion. Inclusion. And inclusion is a collective process. It's not an individual process, it's reflection. Inclusion is a collective process. So, inclusion means granting access to the social process of sharing one's own reflection in participatory co-creation processes. On the societal level, the places where co-creation takes place are spaces of exchange, in which citizens engage in the process of sharing experiences while appropriating common good content. Now, what is a space of exchange in which citizens share experiences while appropriating common goods? It's a public library. Public library. But my point is that DARIAH is a space of exchange. You see? Because we offer common goods. So I say we, I personify in DARIAH. Anyway, all of us. We offer common goods. We offer the possibility of sharing experiences, and we are the space of exchange. So it doesn't. Obviously, OD is this. Is a space of exchange in which people can book a room for a working group and stay there 2 hours and share experiences and come up with some new common goods. So the point we are making, research infrastructure such as DARIAH are a good example because they foster new ways of knowledge production inside research performing organizations, which in turn are influenced by and are influencing the engagement on the humanities with society at large. In our quickly changing society, we face issues of multiculturalism, migration, innovation, sustainability, security and freedom. And inclusion has become one of the most dominant values and objectives in education. Today we are looking at the crisis of trust, you were talking about that, in traditions and cultures. We need new narratives that require efforts for logic, society and personality. The issue is communication towards the harmonic blending of cultures. In fact, a culture cannot be but plural, changing, adaptable, constructed. A culture that does not change and exchange with other cultures is a dead culture. A big step toward cultural innovation is realization that culture is openness to inclusion. So there are several, we are not anthropologists, but please, I'd like you to think of yourselves not simply as as experts in digital humanities. You are, as far as you are here, you are experts in digital arts and humanities. And digital arts and humanities is, so to say, culture in its widest sense. Now, let me conclude by looking at outcomes. So we think that we have 5 outcomes of cultural innovation, which I'm going to lay down and then conclude. First outcome, cultural innovation fosters open innovation. So it's not about closed innovation, it's not about open science as such, it's about the using open science for open innovation. And this is something DARIAH does. Cultural innovation is necessarily open because culture is understood as shared in society. Cultural innovation should contribute to the character of openness of innovations in other forms. For instance, in public administration. So we have the problem of the public sector information. Public sector information are data which are available and can be used open for making, so you think of the citizens, town hall meetings, and so they rely on open science data, the public sector information which is made available, and they come up with proposals. Second, cultural innovation improves welfare. It's shared with social innovation, obviously. The improvement of the welfare of individuals or communities for both are innovations defined by the social objectives to improve the welfare of individuals and communities. So that's why we put money into culture, because it improves the welfare, we can say. Third item, outcomes, which we are all responsible for, transmitting heritage. We are in charge of making it possible that heritage is not lost. So we look at data, we look at repositories, we look at libraries, we look at museums. That's one of our. Fourth, and you like that, although we don't do that. Actually, we're supposed to do it in the global challenges. Creativity. Cultural innovation fosters creativity. No? Fosters creativity. And the fifth, how about that? Experiencing beauty. Why not? So we talk about arts and humanities. Art is beauty, because so the public has decided we keep this work because we all agree that's worth keeping. So the experience of beauty is something also that improves welfare. Let me make an example. There are two museums, perhaps you have been to them. One is in Venice, the other is in Milano. They're both national museums, Galleria dell'Accademia and Accademia di Brera. Galleria dell'Accademia is only Venetian art. Beautiful art, but the best you can have, but Venetian. The one in Milan is more interesting, and because you see, we are talking about after the French Revolution, when the soldiers looted, and so the art market started going after the French Revolution, and there were boards of wealthy aristocrats and rich people in the civic councils that decided we want to buy art for our children, for our citizens. So that's what they did in Milano. So you don't have only Lombard art, although you have it, Leonardo, Lombardi, Bernardino Luini, Savoldo, Moretto, they're there. But you also have a lot of diverse collections. You have the Spanish, you have the Flemish, you have the English. So it's diversity that makes it possible. So actually, fostering creativity is more interesting if you show to the children that visit the museum something they don't know. That's an example. I mean, actually, we have already had cultural innovation in the past. Now we can have it in a very effective way because we can share these data. Now let me conclude with one line. So I read it again, and then I close, and I really like to hear from you, how do you react? Because my point is that we are in a good position for making the point that our research and the development of our research, but this is a modelization of our research, produces a service. The service is granting access, having people work, having people provide open innovation, having people provide open innovation in the right direction, which is, if you want, again, the sustainable development goals: reduce poverty, reduce inequalities. Think of gender, all new narratives that are coming up thanks to better research on data. Think of the history of women philosophers. That wasn't possible with closed science, closed data, and no working groups. Now it's possible, and this is something that works. But let me conclude by the definition we give at the last. Cultural innovation can be understood as the outcome of complex co-creation processes the co-designing, co-constructing, co-creating, that involve the reflection of knowledge flows across the social environment within communities of practices, working groups that we have in DARIAH, while fostering the inclusion of diversity within society. Cultural innovation takes a critical stance against inequalities in the distribution and use of knowledge, and builds innovation for improving the welfare of individuals and communities. That's our final definition. And we really hope that it will help the community to make the point that humanities can give a service towards sustainability. Thank you.
Riccardo, thank you very much for rounding off. We have the part 2 tomorrow, but for rounding off this with such beautiful, and I love the idea that DARIAH could be beautiful and we can also contribute to the 21st century of sustainability. This is the goal. Like, if peace was for the 20th century, then sustainability for the 20th century, if we're part of that. I realise we're going to have a discussion, but it's very late in the day, but has anybody got any comments, questions, feedback for Riccardo right now, please? I think we're all overwhelmed with all of
I can do it. No, to be honest, I asked Sally to lead the discussion because I said I can't really listen to my voice anymore. No. But now, again, I have to. No, just one question. I think I'm loud enough. Thank you very much. Very inspiring and beautiful, but also I think in some way very practical for us as we develop our strategic plans and try to, if I may not use the better word, sell DARIAH to those that we try to sell it to. However, the selling bit is the one that gives me most pause, because you spoke about money to knowledge, but then there's that bit about knowledge to money, which is very scary for somebody who comes from traditional humanities and who was educated, well, let me put it this way, who grew up in socialism, like myself, and who is somehow by nature very suspicious of any kind of, even at the rhetorical level, of the talk of market value and the monetization of research and all these things. And yet you seem to be very calm in your conviction that we can talk about innovation and the market and the services and saving money without actually getting entangled in all the horrors of capitalism. How do you do that?
Thank you for the question. But you're seeing it in the entertainment industry. So Netflix is an example of knowledge that generates money. It's a model that makes money using the data of the users. They do money, and we're happy about that, but we are not going that way. We are going the way of open science for open innovation. And I am reporting about the discussion we're having now in Italy as regards youth unemployment, which is very big, because the first sector, agriculture, is been mechanized. The second sector industry is being the manpower is being reduced due to the digital transition, and we have services, but the services cannot come up with all the young people. So what do we have right now? We have young people that work with no income. So income comes from the government. Minimum income, that's perhaps enough, so they survive. But the point I'm making, we're very strong on that, is that young people that use data, that work on data, they have a chance of bettering themselves from being low-skilled labor to high-skilled labor. So if young people work on open innovation issues, I make an example, I'm seeing some very nice books produced by people I know around Rome of local history. So working groups on local history of a certain village, they get together, they use open material, or they put material, and they do very interesting photo tagging. Photo tagging is a very important part of cultural innovation. But you just put a name under a face on a picture. It's very important. So you have a lot of open innovation production now that remains on the net. It's not dissolved. It's posted and it's there. But we have two examples that we think are effective in Italy right now. One is disaster risk preparedness. So we train people to respond immediately to what they see as regards floods, earthquakes, fires, and so that they are trained in communicating right now to the proper institutions what's happening. And then we have a much more inspiring view. This is something I did at CNR when I was in charge of research in cultural heritage. The Minister of Cultural Heritage said, Italy is an open-air museum. I want local administrators to put hotspots in certain sites. They decide, they put hotspots. And I want you, meaning the researchers of the National Research Council, to provide strategies for having the hotspots be, let's say, provided with content. And obviously, the first information we put on the hotspots was regarding the preservation of cultural heritage. That is again earthquakes, fires, so signals that made it possible to communicate right away what was happening to the tower, the church, the building, the statue. That was it. But second, and that's why I was able to get the money for Italy to join DARIAH. The minister said, and I want kids to write narratives on the hotspots. I want kids, and obviously it hasn't started yet, we are not that far, but it's something that we can see. We want kids to write narratives. And obviously kids must know how to write narratives. That is, they must know about digital property, digital rights management. They must know about what they can use and reuse of public sector information. These are all things they have to learn. But this is jobs. This is jobs. And this is part of the effort of cultural innovation, I think. Because, you see, these are for 2030. In my mind, I'm thinking of 2028 because I have a deadline on 2028. So I'm trying to figure out how the world will be in 2028, and especially how will the accessibility of text be in 2028 at the end of the 5G rollout, just before the 6G rollout. We will live in a world of texts, no? And we have to find our way. So you see, in this sense, cultural innovation, use, access, participation, use, reflection, inclusion. These are things that will be our daily bread. So my answer is, let's wait for the 5G rollout. Andrea? Sorry, I wanted to acknowledge Andrea who read the paper and provided very important comments.
So what my takeaway message is, once again, and I've been talking, and what I would like to share with all of you is that also reminds us that beside that we have projects and we write deliverables, we organize working groups and we talk to each other across domains and across countries, there's always a beyond which is greater than just the academic life we encompass that makes it so intriguing, and I think that's also something maybe for DARIAH to somehow give attention to, or to somehow acknowledge what is already there. And I'm thinking of Aarhus now, where Marianne took us to the Innovation Forum with the arts and the arts and humanities. And you also think about in the daily work, where do you already reach out, or where could you reach out? And a lot of DARIAH activities take place in museums, in libraries, in archives, which all have an outreach function, but that's not naturally linked to the research function. Yeah? So there is also a natural border you have to keep around your research, otherwise you can't do your research anymore. And you need to be meticulous and small and kind of thing. But I think now and then take a breath and to think, oh, are we already doing this? Or could we do this in an easy way by, I don't know, something simple like exhibitions, or organize something at schools, or do some other kind of engagement. I think that would be nice. That would also profile DARIAH as something which takes place in society, and not only an area which takes place in academia. That's what I take from it.
And I don't know if this is the right comment, but I was very lucky to be involved in the GLAM, so the galleries, libraries, archives and museums. We did a book sprint about lab initiatives, and this was an open innovation. So the book sprint, we had 50 people come together to write an open science book, CC0, and tried to do radical open innovation as part of the process. But this experimental lab environment, so the idea that a library or museum is the lab of the humanities, and I loved your example from Orby, and I'm very jealous, I want to go there, but this idea that we can have, and I called it in a talk that I gave that referred back to the third space, so this place where we can go that is neutral, this common place, and therefore for me, libraries, archives, museums, humanities, computer science, data science still don't work together. And I think if we can go to this third place, which I would love to be within the DARIAH infrastructure, this innovative, experimental place, open, if we can do that as part of DARIAH, I would love to see this open lab, digital lab, heritage. So I just wanted to add that into.
No, that's very nice. Now you see, my point is that I want you to be aware that you are working for open science, you are working for open data, but you're not working for open data to be there as open data. You're working for open data to be there for open innovation. And open innovation is real innovation. You see, it's something that changes things. There is institutional change eventually, and there is a change in the economy, there is a change in the growth of people, and I think be careful with using as an adjective innovative. You use innovative when you know that something is happening in society, and that and it requires an effort. It requires an effort. You see, Thomas, I was in China, and I used to be the director of the Institute of European Intellectual Lexicon, and I had actually breakfast with the director of the Institute of Chinese Intellectual Lexicon, and we put together. And so Chinese Intellectual Lexicon, European Intellectual Lexicon, it's a big effort. Really, it costs, but it opens new paths. It opens new paths. That's where innovation starts. And don't forget beauty. We have a commitment to beauty.
On that note, if there are no more questions or comments, we can certainly continue this discussion over dinner. I would like to thank Riccardo once again for this wonderful talk. And